Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to round 3 of the HFG Transatlantic Triple Crown Series. Vineyards, pasta, olives and $35 million of gold that Michael Caine tried to steal from Italy are things that we would associate with the area we're in tonight. But for you at home watching this evening, it is the Misano racetrack, which has 16 turns, 2.6 miles of tarmac, and is not too far away from San Marino itself. Just started to rain here this evening with only 2 minutes left of the session. These drivers have been practicing all week and putting in their qualifying time. So we've got 15 minutes of practice this evening that these drivers are going to endure. Good evening, Chris, in the chat. Evening, Jared. Hope, is it nice and greasy out there for you, Chris? And we're just on turn 16 now, watching these cars come around, and the first 10 minutes of this practice session were not particularly wet at all, and it's just started to rain, which I believe are the conditions that are going to be replicated in the actual race itself. Let's just jump on board with some of these cars now. That is the wrong button, and that's not going to give you the best view at all as we ride on board now with Grouse himself in the Porsche. Didn't have a particularly great race last week, but it was his first outing in that Cup car. Hopefully we'll see him moving up the field later on in today's race. Let's get right on board with him for a few moments in that green number 11 Porsche as he takes his way around the back end of the track, heading up now down towards a turn which I can't remember the name of, so we'll ride on board with him as he takes us down towards the end of the track. And I do know what the end of the track corner is called, and that is turn 13, which is the Cavoni corner. So we'll stay on board with him there, and we'll miss that first part of the track as he runs wide there, just starting to get a little bit greasy, and I wonder whether he's got his dry tyres on, because, and there you go, the Cup car doing what it does best, and its rear end overtaking its front. Managed to hold it there, and he would have squared some of them tyres off there. Look, taking a lot of curb there on the exit of 14. Heading on down towards the final corner now, turn 16, take a lot of curb here. That's a real lot of curb. That is across the grass and towards the polystyrene block, and it looks like to me he's going to return to garage from that position there. So let's see who else we've got out on track at the minute. Luke Garr there in the Lamborghini, the Super Trofeo car number 16, as he now takes his way around the back towards the end of this track as well. So let's do our usual grid walk, as we will do that with my other screen, and we will ride on board with, I can get hold of him. Yes, he is not a surprising first position, as I'm sure you would imagine. We've seen him on pole quite a few times this season. In fact, we've seen him on pole every time this season. And we'll do our usual little walkthrough here. Let me just disable Yes car so we don't get any laggy feedback as we come through. Excellent image of his ear there, but that's not what we want to see. We want to see these car liveries, as you can see. Yes, livery there with the RDC logo on there, plenty big enough there. We know exactly who he's sponsored by with Coach Dave Academy, Sim Grid and Half Fast Gaming on the side. There you are, HFG's Jeff, one and only Porsche as well, the car number 242. Didn't have a particularly best of luck last week with blue flag back markers getting in his way, causing him to spin at the chicane of Imola. A particularly nasty corner if you get it wrong itself. Let's move a little bit further down towards the back of the grid. Grouse's Porsche I've already mentioned this evening, and here we have the car number 5, the Lamborghini of interest there, sponsored by TikTok themselves. That's a questionable sponsorship choice that we're seeing this evening. The South African Chris Davis's 111, a Lamborghini there, unmistakable colours, starts P6 on the grid this evening. Garr here as well, we saw rode on board the Lamborghini for the last few minutes of qualifying and practice sessions there. Car number 16, Charles Leclerc's number in the Formula 1. 329, David Hulber there. We had a great race last week watching his pit strategy come alive, the 329. This fantastic livery, I've mentioned every race so far this season, and I'm going to continue to mention it there, of the one and only Drew Matthews, car number 13, shortly followed by Bradbury himself, car 870, the 159 car there as well of Jackie Harris. Moving away a bit further up towards grid. Got 1 minute left to go. The Wild Things racing there of Mr. Curto himself, I would have thought. It is Alex Curto. That's the unmistakable livery of the Wild Things racing team. Wasn't able to make last week's race. We did miss that livery on the grid. He is in the Aston Martin GT4 car, which incidentally is the car and the class that holds the lap record around here for the GT4s, which is a 1 minute 41.9 race record. That is Ian Hall's BMW there, the Chevrolet, and of course the Ginetta on the right there. the other BMW on the grid this evening is driven by Cooper himself, the car number 96, and Matthew Mudd's there, 511 Porsche, moving towards the back of the grid now, and Zachary Shanghai in the car number 27, who brings up the final grid slot this evening. I will now jump us back on board with Jost, and we will ride on board with his rear wing as he takes his way down the back and the opening lap of this Misano race this evening. 75 minutes, 1 mandatory pit stop, no mandatory requirements. Good evening, Harry. I've just seen Harry pop up there in the chat. At his parents' house, I believe, this evening. With an hour and 15 minutes race, he should be on the grid this evening, but unfortunately cannot make it. And Harry is not the lazy type. He would be on this grid if he could this evening, but unfortunately was unable to make it due to other commitments. And we're right on board now with Jost, the half-practice hero there, as he brings us round towards the crucial part of this track. It's quite difficult to get the car flowing here, particularly between 4, 5 and 6. Fair bit of miss there. Rain increasing 10 minutes into the race and then easing off again 30 minutes in. So it's not particularly heavy rain, but it's going to be enough to affect the strategy. There's going to be a variation of setups here that we see this evening as well. I've just had the confirmation there that Harry is with us via his laptop, so at least he's supporting us virtually this evening. Unfortunately, like I said, he's not able to race this evening, otherwise we'd have a grid of 24, which I believe would be our biggest grid of the series yet. So good to see 23 cars on the track. Drew Matthews, we know, has a lot of support in the YouTube channel normally, fairly quiet out there this evening on the YouTube channel so far. If anyone wants to give us a thumbs up and who you're supporting, and we can get involved with the chat. I'm on my own for the next hour and 15 minutes with my pint of water that I've got. But anybody else that is interested, England are currently 36 without loss in the West Indies T20 this evening, all on in the background. Not that anybody will be interested in that, but it's something I have got on at the same time. Last week it was the Titans game with the NFL. This week it is the English cricket. So multitasking at its finest as Jost now brings up towards the back of the circuit. Interestingly, we have got 2 cars starting from the pit lane, which is David Hulbert and Alex Curto, I believe. No, it's not. He's on his outlap as well. That's my timing screen that's messed up there. Zachary Shanghai is the other car starting from the pit lane, who obviously missed that countdown. So David Hulbert starting P9. He's immediately going to be on a recovery drive before this race has even got underway. So I wasn't expecting to see that so far early on. You can just see the conditions there on your screen. Don't know how well that comes through on your screen, as now Jost brings us round towards the back end of this circuit between turn 15 and 16. He's going to turn the corner, he's going to see those lights, and he's going to wait for that flag to go green, and he's going to put his foot flat on the floor all the way down towards the complex of 1, 2 and 3 in this very wet track conditions. As you can see there, he now has the starting lights in front of him. Here we go, and we're going to be racing at Misano very shortly. We are racing as we now have a green light with 1 hour and 50 minutes left to go. Jost gets a fantastic start. The car number 37 Porsche heading down towards turn 1, followed by Jeff. Looks like he's not had the best of start as well. You're going to bear with me while my timing screen catches up to date with everything going on now. You just see Luke Garr running off wide there, jumping aboard with a helicopter to give us a wider angle now. The Porsche there of Arjitsu coming not far behind Jost, and as you can see, Grouse is dropping further back. You've got the nose of Steve Ender as his Lamborghini making his way there for his podium spot again there, pushing Luke Garr out of the way as he now comes up towards the complex of 6, 7 and 8. Quick skirt of the bottle down towards turn 8, and this is almost a double apex in fact, braking board about 100, but in the wet obviously you've got to turn. He locks up and he takes the Porsche, goes round. That is the Porsche of Louis Arjitsu there, and he's backing up into the tyre wall. He's going to have damage from that at all. You just see his rears locked there, and he's span. He just completely lost control of that car altogether. Jeff just leaving the pit lane now. David Hulbert also in the pits. You've got Yers leading the way, followed by Steve Enderez. You've got Grouse there going off into the gravel. Absolute carnage at the start here. The Porsches, Yers is still managing to keep it on the track, and nowhere else anywhere to be seen. You've got the Lamborghini Super Trofeos taking up the rest of the grid. Chris Davis up into P3. We're going to see a move around at the inside here, all going down now towards turns 12, 13 and 14. Can he get the braking point right under braking here? Try not to lose the rear end. Runs a little bit wide there, and he just manages to keep it on the track. We have yellow flags all over the circuit at the moment. It's just been cleared to green. Chris Davis taking his way around now towards the back end of the track up into the podium places. Steve Enderez on the back of Yers. We know these Porsches are going to have to be a little bit more careful without their traction control this evening. The Canadian driver there is still all over the back of that Cup car in front of him as he tries to close him down. And we're going to ride on the rear wing of Yers' car now just to see how close Steve actually is. You can see the gap the two leaders there have got already. It's tremendous. Chris Davis is the nearest car behind him, and he's 3 seconds back. Chris has managed to make up a little bit of time there. Apologies for going quite briefly. I was waiting for my timing screen to prop up our Jitsu there. We did see him lock up with Zach Rouse there. They are well back in the grid now, P19 and 20. Unfortunately, I can't show the replay at the moment because we'll lose the on-track action, but the rear end just locked up for our Jitsu, and he just lost control of that Porsche and he span, and unfortunately couldn't get the car stopped before his rear end went into the barrier, so he's now going to be running diffuser damage as we know. Ian Hall up into P13 there. You can see the BMW on the back of the Owen Wilson's Ginetta car there as he's right in the tailgate of that as he now also comes down now towards that back straight complex of turns 9 and turns 10. Let's see what's going on at the front here. Steve Enderez, I'm told, has taken the lead. He has taken the lead of Yers. That Cup car really struggling in these conditions. Chris Davis is also going to try and have a go at Yers in a moment. Let's jump on board with him. He is all over the back of that Porsche in front of him. A half practice hero there. He's going to really struggle around these next few corners. You can see he's ran wide. Just has ran wide there, allowing Steve Davis to take P2 of this race so far. Chris didn't take much entertainment there. He just said, thank you very much, I'm having that position. Moves his way now up into P2. Steve Enderez is round, and Chris has hit the front of him. That is going to be the end of Steve's race in P1 for the time being. He's going to have to pit for damage repairs. Chris obviously would have taken a substantial amount of damage in that as well. That is really unlucky for him. He has had damage now in all 3 races and no fault of his own, so he is not going to be particularly happy about that. He's one of the calmest drivers on this grid, but there's only so much a driver can take because that is the 3rd race in a row he has had some bad luck as he's gone from P2 down to P4. Jackie Harris now up into P5. It's all over the back of Drew Matthews' Lamborghini, and he's going to close that in there. Fastest lap time we've got on the board at the moment is Jers, who has only set the 1 valid lap time, which was, believe it or not, his out lap and warm-up lap. So that just goes to show you the conditions and how slippery it is out there at this moment in time. Luke going up into P2 then, inheriting the place from Chris Davis's somewhat accident with we saw Steve Enderez's Lamborghini go round towards the end of the circuit. We've got a yellow flag on the track, which is the car number 329, which is David Hallboy's Lamborghini. We see him start from the pit lane, so he's going to have cold tyres, and once these tyres get cold on these track conditions, it really does struggle to warm up again. He wants to be careful running out there. He doesn't want to be taking too much curb on that as well, otherwise he'll find himself facing backwards pretty soon. Matt Cooper up into P15. Looks like he's under attack, or trying to attack, I should say. Matthew Mudd there. You can see Steve Andrews' Lamborghini there, the TikTok Lamborghini. I can imitate doing some TikTok dances for you as we ride on board with him now, as he now brings us towards the back of the track, all over the back of that GT4 McLaren. It shouldn't take him too long to dispatch him, and you can see him there. He's going to pull out wide in front of him, riding on board with him as he goes through there. It says, thank you very much, I'll have that place, obviously, which is what we would expect from one of the Super Trofeo cars. Moving further up, Yerst is back into P1. Every race so far this series, he has lost P1 and then regained it again at some point during the race. He seems to want to tease the other drivers, although it looks like Luke Garr has made his way past Yerst and up into P1. My timing screen has only just refreshed, and it has there as he's crossed the line in sets of 1 at 51.297. Super Trofeo there, car number 16. Luke Garr is up into P1 with Drew Matthews getting his podium place of P3. as he now comes around to start his lap going through turns 3, 4 and 5. Chris Davis managing to hold on to P4. Obviously we did see him suffer that damage there. Let me just see if I can get a TV camera shot there to see what the damage looks like on the front of that Lamborghini. It doesn't look too bad. The question that Chris is going to have is, does he pit and repair that damage, or does he keep running one out? And I would have thought in these wet conditions, you can see there, look at the rain coming down on that corner. I would have thought he's going to want to repair and get every inch of downforce he can possibly get. Just trying to keep it on the track there within those white lines. Track limits there are an absolute pain in the backside, as we know. We are only 6 minutes into this race and we've had our fair share of action already. The car's still relatively closely grouped. Jackie Harris in P6, the car number 159, as he now comes down towards turn 8, down towards 9. Again, trying to avoid that red bits of Astro there, otherwise that does tend to catch you out a little bit. Ooh, that's an interesting move there from the Lamborghini of Bradbury. There goes up the inside of Jackie Harris. Jackie's going to try and come back, just clips the grass too much on the switcheroo that he tried there, which is going to hinder his acceleration from that turn number 10 down towards turn 11. The Cavoni down towards 12 and 13. Bradbury running wide there. Jackie Harris still all over the back of him. This battle is not over there. Let's jump on the back with Kurt and see what it looks like from his rear wing. You can see the spray coming up there into Jackie's face. Alex Curto's in P8 and Aston Martin, a car that handles these conditions extremely well indeed. So far we've got Luke Garr in P1 in the Super Trofeo car, Jost in the Porsche Cup car, Drew Matthews P3 and Chris Davis P4. Staying on board with Chris Davis then, as I just returned from a very quick drinks break. Chris has dropped down to P14, so luckily we were on board with him, so you did not miss the action there. Unfortunately I did, so they can just see it looks like one of the Bradburys going off a little bit wide there. It's going to come a cropper against that Chevrolet as well. And we will jump back on board with these front runners. Chris there running side by side with the other Lamborghini behind him, and the Chevrolet there is going to look at trying to hold that position there, and car number 5 there, which will be I believe that's Steve Enders actually, that's just going to try and make his way back up into that position using Chris as a tow. Jackie Harris down into P6. Alex Curto still on his tail in that favourable Aston Martin. You could just see how much more accurate that Aston Martin is at hitting the apexes and those corners. Canadian driver Jackie Harris there heads down towards turn 1, starting his 6th lap of this race. Hour and 5 minutes left to go. My timing screen is particularly slow this evening and in game. Don't know if that's part to do with the game update, but I'm struggling to keep up with these drivers' lap times. Luke Garr there pulling a lead away from Jost there in 3.6 second gap there now. The Canadian driver jumping back on the rear wing. You can just see through the spray. You can see Jost coming around there behind him. You can also hear the tyres sliding under this Lamborghini, so I wonder how long these are going to last in these conditions, because rain is going to start lessening in the next 10 minutes and we're going to end up with a dry race very, very soon. And just here, the tyres struggling a little bit there to rotate, so I wonder because the rain is lessening now, where there is a dry patch starting to form. Jumping on board the helicopter there's no visible line there yet, as Luke now comes around towards turn 16, going to put his foot flat on the floor, avoiding that curve, because that is a spinning point. Drew Matthews in P3 there, inherited that podium position after Chris Springbrook had that unfortunate incident with Steve Endurez, and then also span at the top end of the circuit, putting him back down into P12 for his recovery race. I would not be surprised, I'm not a betting man, I would not be surprised if we don't see that Lamborghini 111 pit soon for the extreme undercut. I'm also getting flagged up that car number 11 has span on the track, which is Zach Grass in that Porsche Cup car. He's currently down in P23 and 10 seconds away from, and the rest. That time machine's not actually updated yet, as he's now coming around the back end of the circuit himself. Looks like he's really struggling to get to grips with that Porsche this weekend, but he's not had the track time the other drivers have had. You're not going to, unfortunately, pick up a cup car and drive it around, be the fastest on the track. It's a pain in the backside to control at the best of the time. Darren Bradbury down in at P14. The Lamborghini Super Trofeo. He's now also bringing it back round the start of the circuit. Down towards turns 6 and all the way down to turn 7 there, not missing the braking point. We did see earlier that some of the drivers have been struggling with the braking point down at turn 8. The back end gets a little bit loose, it does go downhill and off camber. Just going to be careful the back end doesn't overtake you there at all, although this Lamborghini does look particularly planted around this part of the track. No yellow flags on track for the first time in this race, I believe. We're 12 minutes in, and Joest is now also hunting down Luke Guy in front. You can just see that Lamborghini there racing off into the distance, up down towards turn 16. Let's just stay on board with Joest in his helmet camera, see what it looks like on the exit of 16, one of the widest parts of the circuit to take without losing the back end. Another yellow flag on track there. Centerable with Joest as he now brings it round turns 4, 5 and 6. Particularly tricky part of the circuit, never mind when it's wet. Just to confirm as well, the track temperature is now 23, and we're going to see a dry circuit in the next 10 to 30 minutes. So then these drivers are going to want to be staying out as long as they can, so they don't have to pit for the second set of tyres. These drivers that have spanned, so Grouse and Shane, will have to pit again unless they want to run the wet tyres further into the race, which in my opinion would be a mistake. Luke Gard there, the absolute race leader, spinning around on the circuit. That is an absolute disaster for him, down towards turn 8. The second place leader, Joest Lean, is going to overtake, and you've got Curto there. You can see that Aston Martin coming up behind him. That is an absolute tragedy for Luke as he now comes up towards turn 8. His tyres are going to take some cooling down now. You can see the interesting line he's going to take there. The Aston Martin of Wild Things Racing, Alex Curto, all over the back of that Lamborghini now. And he's going to be eating that for breakfast pretty soon, unless that Lamborghini can get going again and find the rhythm pretty quick, cooling them tyres down. You can just see he's going to try and he's going to lose it back in again, and Alex Curto just misses the Lamborghini. And I would imagine there was some code brown moments there for both drivers, as Luke would have been trying to stop that Lamborghini there. Don't keep spinning the rears up, you've got to pit twice. So he's now going to be underway, and that was very close for them. That means Joest, as I said earlier, has won every race this series so far by not leading every race. Zach Grouse has been disqualified from this race, and that I would have thought will not be anything malicious. That will be a game deciding that they've had enough of track limits or time gained, so that will be no fault of his own. The car number 159 as well now flagging up Jackie Harris, yellow flag. These drivers really are struggling out there today towards the end of this first stint. The track is still classed as wet. Jackie dropping down the standings. Alex Curto, P6 in that Aston Martin. We know Kart loves this. Ian Hall moving his way up as well. Timing screen's only just got with me there, sorry. So Ian Hall is P6. The BMW car number 87. Leading a bit of a pack here. You can see Springbook's on his charge back now to P9 with Steve Endurez in front of him. If those two can stay together and pick cars off through the pack, they will be very happy with each other indeed. You can see the Giannetti there just getting a bit close to Ian as he goes around turns 4 and 5. turns 6 now as he goes up towards it, but believe it or not, that curb there on the left is actually classed as a turn, a kind of a 159 yellow flag again. I do believe that is Jackie Harris again, who is going around. The Canadian driver there of the car number 159 Super Trofeo is around towards the back end of this circuit, turn 14 and 15. HFG's one and only Jeff as well, not far behind him, who has again had an unfortunate incident during this race. All driver, and Jackie's gone off a gun there, you can see on the grass. It looked like he may have been trying to get out of the way of the colleague's Porsche behind him. All these drivers have still got a pit, remember, apart from the 2 drivers at the back. And it looks like Zachary will have to pit again, because there is no way this track is staying wet for the whole race. Kirk Bradbury up into P3. What's happened to Drew Matthews, I wonder? As he's up into P1. He has taken the lead off Yerst. He is 9 laps into this race, starting his 10th, and he is leading this race. Go on, Drew. This is going to be a great result for him if he can make it stick. But we have seen the conditions are very tricky out there, and there's still 58 minutes left to go. Anything could happen for the car number 13, now leading the way by nearly 6 seconds as he comes up towards turn 4 and 5. Just is his nearest car behind him, and he's 5 seconds back, nearly 6 now. So Kirk Bradbury is also going to be on the back of that Porsche in front of him very quickly. You can see the rain still coming down there as he now comes through towards turn 4 and 5, losing a little bit of the rear end there. You got turn 6 coming up here, and then as he's going to run wide here and take too much curb. You need to be careful there with the throttle, make sure it doesn't spin you. This is actually, believe it or not, it's called a turn. This is turn 7, where that Astro bit is on the left there, down towards turn 8, braking just before the 100 board. And you can see the car well and truly under control there, coming over towards the apex on that particular occasion. We have seen cars go around there already. No yellow flags on the circuit. That's another 5-minute period we've then gone. Drew Matthews is leading this race by a significant gap so far. He also holds the fastest lap on the 1:48.447 as he now goes down towards the back end of the circuit of turns 13 and 14 themselves. This is the first race we've had with Drew Matthews now leading the way without his usual fan club in the YouTube chat. Now that's a first and unfortunate incident for him. Just checking how many, we've got 7 watchers at the moment on the channel. We'll stay on board with Drew for a little bit longer before switching back to Chris Davis, who is now up into P7. See what it looks like from his perspective out there at the moment. He's on the back of the Steve Endurez Lamborghini and the Rosson Star 666 Chevrolet in front of him. Both got one pit stop in hand. Chris just giving out the spray a little bit there. You can see the Lamborghini's going to go up the inside. The Chevrolet shouldn't defend too hard here. It's not really going to be their race. As Chris makes his way around there, and he's now going to move his way up into P6. Aston Martin of Alex Curto in P8. These 2 Lamborghinis going to be up there, and it's not going to be long before they are with Kirk Bradbury and Yerst themselves. They're not too far up the road now, although the car number 13, Drew Matthews, is a long way up the road, and he is having a comfortable margin here at the moment, keeping things steady. The rain is going to stop in the next 10 minutes, so we're told, based on the server forecast, so anything could happen. Yet these pit strategies are going to have to be absolutely crucial. Getting that change from wet tyres to dry tyres is going to be an absolute art to try and get this perfect. It's down board with Yerst, and as you can see, Kirk Bradbury is his nearest attacker, and he is nowhere to be seen on the rear wing of that Porsche. We now go down towards turns 14 and 15. Nothing to be seen there, jumping back on board with the helicopter. We have got some support for Drew in the chat. P1 as it stands at the moment, comfortable lead of 4 seconds, not losing control of that car at any point, staying on board with him there as he now comes up towards turn 1 to start his 12th lap of this race. Conditions are favourable to him at the moment. He does appear to be doing everything he needs to do to maintain that place. See what it looks like from the cockpit. A little bit of oversteer there. That may have been the commentator's curves a little bit. See what things look like from his helmet cam as he now comes around towards turns 5 and turns 6. On board with Drew then, as he's now on his 12th lap of this race with a comfortable lead of nearly 4.5 seconds. Let's just switch to an external camera so we can get the best view here. We've gone board with the TV cameras, I think. That should give us one of the better views. And again, these drivers are going to be waiting for this track to dry up before they serve those all-important pit stops that are coming. We know they're coming, but the drivers are going to try and hold off until it... Now, it doesn't take long, Joseph, for me to start running people's races with that. I think out of the 4 races I last commentated on, the driver that I then spoke about actually span and crash, and Chris Springbrook is 2 of those races that I'm talking about, so I'll make no apologies for that. Some of us have a job to do, and it's a coincidence, I am sure. No ballast being applied from the broadcast mode this evening. Drew Matthews there, still leading a comfortable race here, 3.7 seconds in the lead. Yerst is just not too far behind him there, catching up with him now. You can see over the Logitech rear wing there, the Porsche just coming around. Turns 4 and 5, running a little bit wide there on the exit. Can he keep it nice and tidy through here? He can, no curve at all needed. We'll lost a little bit of time there, but nowhere near as much time as you lose if you go too wide over those speed bumps. Yerst is on a mission now. His fastest lap is a 4.82. Drew Matthews is a 4.84. Interestingly, the fastest ever lap round here is a 1:32.6, which is held by the GT3 cars, and 1:41.9 by the GT4 cars. So that was 2 years ago. So there has been some significant technological advances there with these cars in real life. So not too much that can be judged on that. 3 seconds now, Yerst is. He's on his way back from Drew. Can Drew keep his way in front? In the chat's getting interesting here, Harry. I'm going to ignore that comment because if we total up my accidents compared to yours, you would be by far more insulted than what I would be, especially when we look at how ridiculous some of them are. Alex Curto in P8 on the back of that Chevrolet still. Let's run on board with his helmet cam there. You can see the Aston Martin steering wheel there in gear 5, 190 kilometres an hour, heading down towards turn 14. Obviously he's going to take 13 now first, which we know the rear end gets a little bit loose under braking. You can just see that there's a little bit of corrective steering needed to keep the car under control. I don't know whether Alex is deliberately running without any window wipers on, but I'm sure he could see better if he turned them on, but each to their own, I am sure. While things racing every day, looks absolutely fantastic on the circuit there. I'm wondering whether he's forgot to program one of his window wipers, because no one by choice will be running without them on. I mean, it's horrific, look at that. Luke Gar's got them on. He's not doing much anymore, but he's right in the spray of Kirk Bradbury's Lamborghini in front of him as he moves out of the way to cover them off. Stay on board with Drew Matthews there, because we know Yerst is getting a little bit closer to him. You can see that Porsche is the closest it's been all race so far. Rain is going to stop in less than 10 minutes. Give it another 10 minutes after that, I would have thought we'll start to see a dry line form, and then these drivers are going to want to start thinking about pitting. With 50 minutes left to go. Jackie Harris in the barriers there, I believe. Car number 159 yellow flag. He's going to stay there until the pack moves past him. So he needs to move now, or he needs to wait. Steve Ender is back up into P3. Chris Davies back down into P9. Has he had another off, I wonder? And Alex Curto there in his way. Chris taking plenty of curve there. Jackie Harris still admiring that crash barrier in front of him. He'll be waiting for clear traffic, and you can see that he's going to want to be moving after the car. Number 61 comes round. Ian Hall into P11 now. He's got the Lamborghini. Arjitsu, the Ginetta of Wilson as well. Everything in the mix there. Arjitsu's Porsche in front of him that we saw. P2 going down towards turn 8. The back end just lifted, overcorrected, and he ended up backwards in the barrier. Jeff, HFG's one and only Jeff, has just set the fastest lap, which is 1:49 dead. Drew Matthews has also just set a 1:49 dead, but his was invalid. So you can see the track is starting to dry up, the rain is easing off, and we're going to have a dry track in less than 10 minutes. Then it's going to be a case of waiting for that line to form, and boom, who's going to trigger them pit stops first? Kirk Bradbury, currently P5, comes up towards turn 16 himself, back to start his 15th. And he's gone round! He's going to get in the way of the leader's cars there, as he's now going to pull out off the track and try and correct it. He's got a lot of space after these 3 cars there. He's done a fantastic job there not to cause any problems to anybody as they've come around that blind corner of turn 16 as well. The Chevrolet's now going to be all over the back of him. Hold position there, Kurt, and let that Chevrolet take you. Otherwise, you're going to cause a problem there. The Lamborghini's got enough speed there, though, to correct that. So, a question for those in the chat, particularly Joe and Harry. What's the difference between a Funfair Teacups ride and Harry Bella's? And the answer to that is the Teacups Funfair ride is supposed to spin. Staying on board with the Lamborghini, the car number 5 there of Steve Endurist, had a not particularly great start, unfortunate start, made his way back up into P3, was pulling the Lamborghini of Chris Davis through with him, who again also had 2 unfortunate incidents in this race so far. Ian Hall in P11 himself as well. You can see Jeff still holding the fastest lap there. We have had a faster lap, but unfortunately it was not a valid point, a valid lap time at all. Joe, incredible. I'll give you another joke in a moment. As we stay on board with Ian Hall there, and you can see the rain looks like it's actually just starting to come down a little bit harder again, but the forecast still says it's clearing up in the next 10 minutes. And Harry and Joe still in the chat there with me this evening. We've also got Drew's wife in here as well, as they come down now towards turn 8. The Ginetta, they're taking a particularly interesting line there. So Joe, next one for you is, what's the difference between a Formula 1 test driver and Harry Bella's race laps as well? The answer to that one is a Formula 1 test driver is supposed to change its tyres every 2 laps. Staying on board with Ian then, as he now the car number 87, as he now comes down towards turns 13 and 14, particularly great part of the track. Let's ride on board with his helmet here and have a look at what this looks like. Car number 87 here, it looks like it's absolutely on rails, taking all the curvy knees. The wet conditions aren't bothering at all, although this is the first time I've seen this race where it doesn't look like the window wipers are needed on that speed. So the track is definitely going to start to dry up pretty quick as well. The car number 87, Ian Hall there. In the front we've still got Drew Matthews leading by 3 seconds. Just cannot break that 3-second barrier that he's currently got. The DNA Racing Lamborghini there, very dominant at the moment. What he's going to have to do though is get this change from wet to dry tyres absolutely perfect. Otherwise Yerst will seize that opportunity, and we know Yerst is quick in the dry. And we stay on board with Drew as they now come down towards turn 13 himself. So Luke Garr, P4, had a very unfortunate start to the race, was leading the race for quite some time and then unfortunately dropped it going down towards turn 8. We know how vicious these curbs and bits of AstroTurf can be. On board with the helicopter there, you can't see a line forming yet. I apologise for anyone watching now, I forgot to mute myself before taking that drink. The car number 159, yellow flag, which belongs to Jackie Harris in that Lamborghini, who is currently on his 14th lap, facing forwards in between turns 15 and 16. He's going to have to wait for this pack to pass him before he can go any further round. That is an unfortunate sight to see for Jackie, who started this race so well. He has got a pit stop in hand as well and is currently 4 laps down on the leader, so hopefully we'll see him do some damage to the back of that pack as he now tries to make up those places. Our Jitsu there in the Porsche that we saw have that horrific accident at the start of the race. He lost his back end and unfortunately, no matter how hard he held the brakes, could not stop it from going into that barrier. He's currently 4 tenths up on his current lap and has just set the fastest lap by a considerable margin. It's one of the first lap times that we've seen into the low 47s. That Porsche there sliding all over the place. He's got Chris Davis right in front of him. Chris ain't going to want to let that Porsche go, but equally he's going to be focusing on Luke Garr in front of him. I wonder how far Luke Garr is down the road for Chris Davis indeed. Not far at all. You can see Chris is all over it. His pace is extremely quicker than Luke's in front of him. But equally that Porsche Jiu-Jitsu is going to want to be coming through that pack as quickly as he possibly can. You can see there the Lamborghinis leading the way so far. Drew Matthews still in the lead, 2 seconds. That's the smallest gap we've seen so far as he now comes around towards turn 16, making it very careful he doesn't drop on the curb there. Looks like he locked the front right going in towards turn 16 there. Don't want to be doing that too often, especially if the track starts to dry on a set of wet tyres. Won't take you long before you start to square these off. Obviously the ABS is going to have to be reflected. Let's just jump on board with his helmet cam and give you his inputs as he takes us around this part of the track. You can see how sensitive he is being on the throttle there in the bottom right hand corner of your screen. Running 57% brake balance as well. Once you put some corrective action in there, you can just see how smooth he is on the application of the brake on and off, which you've really got to be during this. And this corner in particular, I'm very interested to see how he deals with the throttle here. Because if you take too much curve, you can, yeah, there you are, quick feather, and doesn't apply full throttle until he knows he has made it round the corner indeed. Let's jump on board with the external cameras. He now takes it down towards turn 8, leading this race. Luke Garr as well, P4, got Chris Davis right behind him with the Porsche Jiu-Jitsu looking for company as well. Porsche going a little bit deep there in turns 4 into Rio turned 5. Number 17 there, keeping his pace. He's lapping about 10th faster than Chris Davis at the moment, but you've got to be significantly faster around here to overtake or get a very good exit out of turn 10. So whichever one of those things comes first, I'm sure we'll soon see that car number 17 working its way up the pack. Drew Matthews there still in the lead, 2.1 seconds. And you can see the rain has now stopped, I believe. Yeah, they've got the wipers on still for the spray of the cars, but it won't be long now before we get a dry line forming. In fact, you can actually see the dry line starting to form now there. I'm using my mouse, which you can't see, but there's a dark line on the apexes of corners. The McLaren there, Zachary, just comes into pit. I wonder whether he's going to jump to dry tyres early. That'll be an interesting call if he does, as he takes out the sign, the speed limit sign there. Obviously, he didn't want to follow those instructions at all. Through there now, and looks like he's just coming to the pits as well. He's 8 seconds down on this lap. He must have had an off. We must have lost just at some point during this race, as he is now 8 seconds down on this particular lap and 10 seconds down off the pace. So he's now fallen right back into the grass of Steve Endres there, who can now, if you ride on board with his dashboard, you can see, yes, there, right up in front. Got the yellow flag on the left-hand side there. Looks like the Lamborghini of 159, which will be Jackie Harris, coming down towards the Rio corners here, which is turns 4 and 5. Drew still very much in the lead of this race. He'll be very comfortable to know that 10-second gap is there. Gives him a little bit of pressure release when it comes to selecting that strategy. Chris Davis here still in P5. Luke Gar in front and Arjitsu for company behind. As I said earlier, you've got to be significantly quicker here to make the move stick, unless you can get a good exit where the other car doesn't on one of the longer leading corners. You can see on the track map on your right hand side there, the triangle is the leader. Drew Matthews in car number 13. You can see the next nearest car to him is the car number 37, which is Yerst, who is the other side of the long straight. So that just goes to show you the gap there. Chris looks like he went a little bit deep there. And you can just see that dry line starting to form now on the outside of the track. These drivers will be driving offline, trying to collect as much water as they can in the puddles to keep the tyres cool. Doesn't take long for these tyres to start overheating, and once they overheat, you really struggle to cool them down again. And that is the downside of these pit strategies. So they're going to be finding the puddles where they can. Stay on board with Chris Davis then on the back of Luke Gar. I wonder if we're going to see a move here sooner rather than later. Chris has gone from P2 to P19 to P12 to P5 to P9 and back up to P5 again, according to my notes, if I've kept up with that movement we've had this evening from Chris. And he'll be happy with his progress to make his way back up into P5. Steve Endra is there, P3. He's looking on the back of Yerst. There's only a 2-second gap there now after Yerst must have had that mistake. He's now 12 seconds off the pace, so he's dropped a further 2 seconds since we were last on board with him, right into the path of Steve. And then, of course, if Yerst drops any further back, he's then got Luke Gar and Chris Davis to contend with. So really, Yerst is going to have to do something with his strategy here to try and recover. And I wonder whether he's span, and in which case his tyres will be struggling. You can see that dry line there on the left starting to form, but the drivers have taken the right hand side because they want to cool them tyres down. They need to cool them tyres down, otherwise they're not going to make it to the end of the race. Luke Gar there still holding P4. We're on that board with Steve Endres in the car number 5. Let's see what's going on with Ian Hall at the back here, P12. Still got the janitor for company, who keeps interviewing his rear bumper, but there's definitely no comment being given in that interview room because he's not letting him by under any circumstances, as he now runs a little bit wide there on the exit of 6. The no-name corner here, turn 7, which is a ridiculous turn because there's actually nothing to it. Down toward, even on motorbikes, there's nothing to that, so I don't know why that's a turn. Nice and early on the brakes there for Ian, taking it round, and we've got the janitor for company. We'll return to that no comment interview shortly. Matt Cooper there, P16, got Jeff in the Porsche on his tail for company. 36 minutes left of this race, no pit stops been served yet apart from those back runners who are 2 or more laps down, so they won't come into the strategy window at all. Alex Curto back down into P10, although I say back down into P10, he's all over the back of the Chevrolet in front of him. Some fantastic driving there from these drivers. You can just see the traction control having to kick in there for Alex as he came on the exit of that corner. You can see the ABS as well working on the left hand side there, then the green LEDs on his dash. There was a little bit of corrective measure there on the exit. He's going to be a bit too far back on this occasion. That Chevrolet's just a bit too quick in the straight line. The Canadian driver here, while things racing, into turns 1 and turns 2. Still all over the back of that car, 666. All it needs is a mistake, and he's going to say thank you very much, I'm coming through. I'm also just been told that Chris Davis has been overtaken by Arjitsu, but is that due to a pit stop? It is. Chris is serving his pit stop there. He's pulled the trigger early, and Arjitsu moves up into a net P5. Although the only problem with that is Chris is the Porsche behind had the pace, so whether he is now going to overcut you, I do not know. But then again, should you be racing with one of the Porsche Cup cars, they should be further up the grid. So we'll have to see how that battle plays out. It's just he's now going to be attacking Luke Gar. Whether we can do the same with him or not, I don't know. Chris is at the end of his 32 seconds, so he must be coming to the end of the pit lane, and he is. Car number 111, he's going to come out in what looks like a relatively empty space between the car number 27, which I believe belongs to Zachary Shanghai, which is the McLaren. It is. He just comes under your screen there. So nice little gap for Chris. He'll be pleased with that. He needs to find some pace on this outlap. And whether he's gone for dry or wet, I don't know. I would have thought he was gone for dry tyres. It is now a damp track, 24 degrees, starting to warm up a little bit. and that dry line is definitely appearing there. Looking at the lines that Chris is taking, he's on the dry line, so I'm guessing he's running the dry tyres. Drew Matthews in P1 still. Jost is his nearest competitor, who is 10 seconds back. Close that gap by 10 seconds. But what is interesting is Steve is now only a second of Jost in front as he comes around turns 4 and 5. These drivers staying out a little bit longer than the other ones, and Cross is on his in lap as he comes into the pits there. You can see just making sure he hits the speed lane limiter. Car number 88 also racing for Wild Things Racing, and David Hilbert takes the position off him due to that pit stop. Nobody else in the pits as it stands at the moment. Jost is still in P2 and he's hunting down that P1 place, 10 seconds off the pace at the moment, but he's going to have to do some defending soon as well, because Steve is looking for that second spot on the podium. Yellow flag for the car number 159, which I believe is Jackie Harris, who is backwards in the gravel, and you can see that he will have squared those tyres off there with the skid marks left on the bit of asphalt just before the gravel trap. Cross is now next at the pits. And he's served his 32-second stop, so he will have changed tyres, I would have thought, which is what you would expect from these drivers unless they've already served one, and he is underway again. He's going to come out in P18 by the looks of things. Car number 27 of Zachary as well, Zachary Shanghai, who may just pip him to P1. This is going to be really bad timing actually for Cross, because you're going to come out right at the same time as the leader, so he's going to get blue flags straight away for Drew Matthews' Lamborghini, unless Drew can make it through that complex before the end of the pit lane. It's a really long pit exit here. It takes an absolute age to get through, and it looks like he actually made it through. And indeed he has, only just, as you can see, the Porsche there tucks in behind the leader, not causing any problems there at all. So Chris Davis is the one to watch of where he's going to come out with Arjitsu in the Porsche. I would expect Chris to come out behind Arjitsu after he's made the pit stop, purely because of the pace differences between the two cars that we saw earlier. The rain obviously neutralises this a little bit, and we've got another pit stop, which is Jackie Harris changing them tyres by the looks of things. Kirk Bradbury in P7. Hello, what's going on here? We've got a bit of a party going on. We have got the Wild Things Racing Curto behind, then you've got the Chevrolet and Bradbury's Lamborghini in the party here, and not too far behind is David Hilbert's Lamborghini. There we go, as these four on a nice little party through sector 1 up towards turns 4 and 5 now. Let's go with the TV cameras, it might give a bit of better view on this particular battle, as Curto holding back there doesn't want to get any damage to the front of that Aston Martin, which we know suits these conditions very well. These drivers will be running I would have thought, a slightly hybrid setup. They might have gone full wet because they knew this was going to happen from the practice server, as Bradbury manages to maintain at P6, but he's pulling the Chevrolet, Curto and Hallbar with him as well. We've got a mixture of classes here. Ian Hall is currently P10, so he'll have made up some places from those pit stop. That's not his net position, but it'll be interesting to see exactly how this develops for him over the next 30 minutes. We are 45 minutes into this race, and it looks like Drew Matthews as well is coming into the pit stop. So the leader pits for this race. 44 minutes in, he's going to change his tyres. He may refuel, we don't know. I don't know whether refueling is on or off for these drivers. All I know is it's not mandatory, so it's going to be a case of up on the track, jacks and straight off. Jost takes the lead of this race, the net lead of this race. As it stands at the moment, still remains with Drew Matthews, who is now in the pit stop, in his box, on his marks, up on his jacks. Luke Garr in P4 comes into pit as well. Arjitsu pitting behind. This is the battle we want to see. Where is Chris Davis? Is he going to come out in front of Arjitsu? I wouldn't have thought so. He looks a little bit too far back, being held up by the BMW, the Porsche of Matt Mudd. Jeff there taking on some lawn mowing services at the end of turn 9 and 10. And here goes Chris Springlock as he makes his way past the Porsche on the straight in the Lamborghini Super Trofeo, which again is what you'd expect for the GT4 Porsche. Remember, that is the GT4 Porsche and not the Cup car. As Chris takes a lot of curb there, and let's have a look at this battle we've been waiting for. Arjitsu there still in the pits. This is the undercut that Chris was trying to make work. We know he's good with his strategies, and I think he's off his jacks. This will be tight, and it's going to be very interesting to see exactly what happens here. You can see Chris there coming around the back of the track, Let's ride on board with Chris Davis there on the cameras. You can see him coming down the pit lane here. You can see on your track map there the car number 17 coming towards the end of the pits of our Jitsu. This is going to be very tight indeed. And you can see the car number 17 still in the pit lane there, and you should be able to see the Porsche Fujitsu in the back. And Chris has made it stick. He's made that undercut work indeed. He has managed to keep the pace advantage up, and he has come out in front of that Porsche. And to make things worse, our Jitsu has been given a 30-second stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. That really has made his race go from bad to worse, although Chris Davis did not need that 30-second stop-go to make his race complete. He had the raw pace on his own to make that undercut work like a dream. Ian Hall and the other GT4 drivers up in P1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 still to pit, with Sauna in P9 as well, and then Chris Davis is the start of the pitters as it stands at the moment. Yes, the gross leader of this race on his 26th lap. Now, if I know Yers, what he's going to try and do is he will try and make these tyres go as far as he possibly can and pit at the last possible minute, so he can absolutely destroy those set of dry tyres when he gets them. And beat his way through the pack, and what he'll try and do now is create a big enough window to the cars behind Drew Matthews, who is currently 17, 18, 19 seconds off the lead, which isn't enough, but yes, will try and create that gap. But I can just tell you now that Drew is we've not actually had a lap time from him yet since he exited the pits, which we will get very, very shortly, and then I'll be able to tell you exactly what sort of pace we're going to be looking at. So Yers there sets a 147.827, sorry, and we're going to see Drew's pace now as he comes across the line very shortly. Let's see how things fare for him. His last lap was not a valid one, unfortunately, so we can't see what that pace advantage is yet. But what I can tell you is Drew is still very much in Yers' pit window, so Yers is now going to have to try and stay out as the McLaren of Zachary there. Going to try. That's an interesting move from one of the back markers. Just need to try and get out of the way a little bit as Yers comes around now towards turn 7 and turn 8, taking plenty of them curves. Don't want to take too much of them, Yers, otherwise you'll find yourself in that tyre wall like we saw earlier. As he now comes down towards turn 8, nice and easy on the brakes in the Cup car. Car number 13 now coming towards the end of his lap, and I don't think Yers is far enough ahead at the moment to make his little plan work. He's going to try and keep going as much as he can to open that pit window up, but I don't think the pace is going to be there on these tyres. So a 1:47.827 is what is currently being lapped by Yers, the current leader. The net leader, Drew Matthews, is currently lapping at a 49, 2 seconds slower than Yers. So we may see this be tighter than we think. We only need 5 laps from Yers at pace, and boom, he's back in track position after the pit stop. 25 minutes left to go, 49 in. Let's see what happens over these last 25 minutes. And I can tell you as well, rain is forecast towards the end of this race. That is rain forecast at the end of this race. That really is going to start to throw some strategies out the window. Whether Yers tries to stay on these tyres or not, I do not know, but he's going to try and open that pit window up if he can. Remember, he's got his 10-second gap plus the pit stop he's got to do, so he's got some work to do. But if anyone can do it, the half-practice hero, car number 37 driver, can himself. Drew Matthews, let's run on board with him for a bit. And he's got the Porsche number 17 Jiu-Jitsu there company, who's just served his 30-second stop-go. across his Porsche there, still running things a little bit wide. Drew still in P5. Hulbert in the pits. He must be on his pit. He's in his pit box, so that's going to be very interesting where he's going to come out. I wonder if Drew must have dropped it at some point that we've not seen. I don't think he has. We've been on board with him most of the time. This is going to be really interesting. Either my timing screen is messed up, or we're not seeing the representative time of what I thought we were going to see by Drew after his pit stop. So let's stay on board with him for the time being. Yes, it's on his 29th lap now. Drew on his 28th. David Hulbert there coming to the pit exit. Down in P10. Track position there for Drew still stands P4. What happened to Steve Enders? I thought he's looks like he's struggling with the rear end of that Lamborghini again. There's our Jitsu and the two Porsches behind him, which we know are fantastic in these conditions. Not who don't get distracted by the TikTok rear wing there and look over the back of it. You can see two Porsches hunting down as they now go down towards turns 13 and 14, a particularly difficult part of this track, especially in these conditions. Track is still greasy. You can see where the front tyres are locking there in certain places. Our Jitsu still has the fastest lap, it is worth noting. I'm going to leave you on board with Yerst, our current leader of the race, while I step away for 90 seconds. I will leave you on board with him there now as he's leading the race still with his pit stop in hand, trying to correct that gap to Drew Matthews, who is the net leader of this race. I'll come back just at the right time there because the automatic cameras will not like the fact that Yerst has entered the pit stop. Apologies about that as he now enters the pit, and this really is the breaking point now of where is our net leader Drew Matthews going to come out on Yerst, and has Yerst done enough to close that gap down and the pit window. Let's ride on board with Drew Matthews for a bit now then as we see him, and I will tell you, I'll keep an eye on Yerst's time and I'll let you know when he's leaving the pits and how tight this is going to be. Turns 14, turn 15. Yerst has served his pit stop and he is trundling towards the end of the pit lane. Drew makes 16, foot flat on the floor now, coming down towards, so you can see the net leader there at the end of the pit lane now. This is going to be really close, and has Joest done enough to close that gap? Drew surely has done enough with his pace to come out in front of Joest on this occasion. Well, he hasn't. He is not. Joest has now come out as P1. He has done enough to close that gap. Drew Matthews is now going to be P2 for this race, and Joest has managed to use his strategy to come out further down the line than what we would have thought he would have done. So Drew there has not had the pace to respond to Joest, and you've got to give it to Joest. That strategy he's put in play there with 18 minutes left to go worked a treat. He stayed out on the wet tyres, pushing longer than he needed to do so, overheating them and managing them, which has done enough to keep him out in front of this race. And as I said again at the start of this race, the net leader is Joest, and every race at some point in this series he has not led and then has gone to leaving through an error. So we see the out wide error earlier, which put him back down into P4 at Paul Ricard. We see the spin on lap 1, and at Imola as well we did see the off-track moment as well, which meant we had a brief change in lead, but Joest again P1 on his out lap with the two GT4s in front, who are obviously currently leading this race, but won't be because of the two pit stops they've got in hand. 17 minutes of this race left to go. Your top net two are Joest and Drew themselves as they complete their lap. Sauna, 30-second stop-go penalty for speeding in the pit lane. I don't think he'll know he's got that yet though, because he's still in the pit lane, which means that won't flag up on his system unless he's serving it now, of course, which I shouldn't be so judgmental of these drivers. Chris Davis in P7. He was looking very spicy earlier, hunting down P2, but unfortunately had that contact on the lap with Steve Andrews as he spun in turn 16. See that dry line really starting to form there now. Track's still greasy though. Don't want to be out there, Chris, too much, otherwise you'll mess those tyres up a little bit. You can really see a clear dry line now starting to form, and it's Curto in at the pit, which means Joest is now going to be your actual net leader again. Drew not too far behind. This may get spicy towards the end of this race. They are lapping at very similar lap times indeed. Joest is now on the dry tyres, so you'd expect to see that Porsche come to life a little bit more than what we've seen in the wet. And I do feel a little bit for Drew after that amazing first stint he put in, but Joest's strategy, his mind game and his strategy game was so much stronger on this occasion. South African driver Chris Davis up into P5. He is having a nice little race considering his few incidents he's had today. Not a particularly great start to the whole series, in fact, which has resulted in 2 DNFs through no fault of his own. That gap at the front, 1.9 seconds. Remember that gap? Let's see what it looks like in a lap's time. We'll see exactly what that Porsche is doing on these dry lines now. You'd expect it to start driving up a little bit, but whether it does is another matter. Remember, rain is due in the next 10 to 30 minutes with 15 minutes left of this race, and that really would mess these drivers up. And on board with Steve then, again, who unfortunately was leading this race at one point this evening, but dropped it in turn 16, very slippery part of the track, especially in the wet. Chris Davis P5, the South African driver, fastest lap to 1:46.8. Last lap was a 1:46.6, so we are seeing to see some faster laps from him. Kirk Bradbury, P6. A little bit wide there on the exit of 5. Newton's out again for turn 6 because you've run too wide, you know about it. You need to see a dentist because them speed bumps rattle your teeth up. Luke Agar, he now is on the back. This race very much has sort of come to a neutral halt at the moment, apart from that battle at the front. This rain really has messed some of these drivers up today. We saw some incredible action throughout this race in terms of the party with the GT4s in the middle. We've had a change of lead for the first, about 5 different change of leads in the first 5 laps due to certain drivers dropping it in certain places and amazingly not taking others out. But Yurst is about to have some company on that rear wing. If you go on board with him there, you can see Drew Matthews is now within a second of him, and then last lap Drew Matthews was nearly a second faster than Yurst. This race is far from done. Drew's driving a solid race here, but can he keep it together for the last 13 minutes with that rain coming? They've got a greasy track, so these drivers are having to hesitate a little bit when applying that throttle. Don't want to put too much down, otherwise you will end up, as we saw with our Jitsu, with your rear end in that tyre wall. And the rear end just lifts, and once it goes there is absolutely no catching it at all. The only thing you can do is just hope it doesn't go into the tyre barrier like we saw earlier. Still a second between that gap there. You can see Drew Matthews is absolutely on fire this afternoon, or this evening depending on where you're watching, as he now goes down out of turn 10. So we've got a pretty good exit out of there, and in a straight line it looks as though Drew might even be catching yours, as he is now in 1.6 seconds now. So he's down on the exit of 10, but straight line speed, very interesting considering the Porsche should be where it is. These two drivers are about to cross the line again for the 34th time of this race, and let's see what sort of lap times we're going to get here, because this will tell us whether Yurst's outlap was affecting his pace or whether Drew is genuinely quicker than him on this occasion. As he takes turn 16 now, taking not too much curve, don't run too wide here, a little bit of corrective steering there needed by Drew. Yurst crossed the line there with a 1:42.2. Drew crossed the line with a 1:43.3. So Yurst has found some pace and has responded to that threat behind. He's got his P1. He's got 12 minutes left to go. All he needs to do is keep the car on the track. We've now got a green tracks. The grip is starting to come through. Luke going P4 with Chris Davis not all too far behind. Right on board with him for a little bit. You'll see. You can see the rear end of that Lamborghini in front of him, and he's very much keen on hunting that down indeed on the exit of turn 16. Not taking too much curb, otherwise it drags you into the gravel. Alex Curto then. Now he's got his window wipers working. I suspect he probably can't turn them off. As you can see, they're going absolutely crazy there. I'm wondering whether he did that during the pit stop indeed. I'm guessing he's not programmed a button for them, because we saw earlier during those wet races, the wet stint, sorry, that there was no window wipers on at all, and his vision was just a blur. So whether he's put them on during the pit stop and left them on to not risk it, I don't know, but that is rather funny if he has. The Aston Martin starts his 35th lap of this race, and tonight this must be the first time I've not called it a Grand Prix and called it a race, so achievements all around tonight for me. You're still leading this way now by 3.5 seconds. That pace has come back in the Porsche, that we know it has in the dry, especially with that driver at the wheel on board with him now as he comes down towards to start his 36th lap of this race, and he gets a little bit squirrely on the exit there as he comes through turn 16, manages to correct the action that was needed and keep the Porsche on the track. 10 minutes left to go. We are 1 hour 4 minutes into this race, and we have seen all sorts of action so far. Several changes of leads, lock-up, spins, aquaplaning, nudges, grass tracking, lawn mowing services, rear ends in tyre walls, diffuser damage, drive-through penalties, stop and go penalties, and speeding in the pit lane. This race has had it all. Bit of water on these races, it soon makes things interesting. Yes, you want to get back on the track a little bit sooner than that, my old friend, otherwise that grass will pull you in to the wall. Although I know he'll tell me he knows what he's doing, but from the helicopter there it certainly looked like he was on the south end of knowing what he was doing there, keeping it nice and tidy in the track. Let's go Drew, says Ryan in the chat. He's had a cracking race, Drew has, so he's performed it, but unfortunately the Porsche in front of him, yes, which you would expect the Porsche to be leading the race, don't get me wrong, but the strategy there has outdone him. I think if Drew could have kept the Porsche behind him, He probably could have kept it there. So unfortunately the Porsche, yes, had a much better strategy and a much better mindset going into that strategy than the Lambo, but Drew will still be happy with P2. And at the end of the day, yes, I would have thought we'll have gone into this race not expecting to win, but certainly expecting to try and grab some heavy points haul. Car number 24 there, giving me some yellow flags, which is Fernandez. See him have a drive-through penalty earlier, which I'm going to assume is for those track limits. 8 minutes left of this race then. We are 1 hour and 6 minutes into it. Several changes in lead. Drew Matthews still in P2. Looks like that Porsche is too far up the road now for him now, as he is 6.2 seconds back, and that battle looks very much done unless Yers decides to drop it somewhere he shouldn't. Chris Davis up into P5, which we've seen earlier. He has changed positions, I think, probably the most during this race. Locks the front right there going in turn 5 on the exit of 6. You've got to make sure you open the wheel here a bit, not too much, otherwise you end up on these sleeping policemen through there. And let's jump back on board with David Hulver there as he comes down out of turn 10. Looks like he's got a good run out of there. He's got the Porsche of Cross in front of him. Wild Things Racing Porsche. And interesting line there. Slightly off as he comes into board. This is particularly hard because it's downhill and off camber. The rear end lifts. So you have to be really careful that the car doesn't try to go too far to the left. So once it goes, there's not normally much stopping it. So you can see he's on a very decent lap here. He's 5/10 up on this particular occasion. The car in front is neutral on Delta. I would have thought we may see P7 move very soon indeed. We'll stay on board with him as we now race down towards turn 1. Matthew Mudd up into P15, Arjitsu in P14. HFG's Jeff, who was last and cutting grass at one point during this race, is back up into P13. We'll be happy with that effort, I would think. Staying on board with this little battle here now between the Super Trofeo and the GT4 Porsche. As the Porsche seems to be putting the can't exactly where it needs to. A little bit too much curve there for David. He'd be a little bit nervous there, I would have thought. Lifted the throttle, which would have affected his drive, but the straight line speed of the Lambo should have the Porsche no problem at all. And he should just drive past him on the main straight out of the exit of turn 10 with 6 minutes and 50 seconds left of this race. This is where we're going to see the move, jumping on board the helicopter, and to see him take that P7 place overall back, which he'll be pleased to have done before the technical part of this track. Don't want to be caught in dirty air, especially in sector 3 here. Back of that rear wing there, you can see the Porsche still looking like he wants to place back, but unfortunately it is no match for the power of the different class car in front. Unless there's a mistake there, that position is not coming back. Next on the list for David will be Kirk Bradbury, who is a lot further up the road than what he is at the moment, as he now starts his 38th lap of this race. Still on board with the Metalhead Motorsports Lamborghini then, as he comes around towards turn 10 himself. Really important to get a clean exit here, because it absolutely eats your delta if you don't, as Luke Garr found out on that previous lap, as he is now 5/10 down as he comes across the line to start his 39th lap of this race. Drew Matthews, I'm being told, is back up into P1, so Yers must have had an off. That is something I was mentioning earlier, that Yers was well and truly in the lead of this race by 6-7 seconds, unless he dropped the curb somewhere, which it looks like he has. So Drew back up into that P1 place, which he'll be over the moon about, considering the hard work he's put in. And Yers managed with a fantastic strategy, managed to take P1 back. Blue flags there being waited for the GT4s behind. You can just see in that camera shot there, with 4 minutes and 30 seconds left to go this race, we've got Drew leading the way. which obviously is great news for those of you following him back on board the helicopter. You can see yes there, he's 2.6 seconds off Drew. He is going to be lapping a lot faster than Drew, so Drew has still got a lot of work to do to keep that Porsche behind, but it is definitely upper hand to him now, and he just needs to defend like mad and keep that Lamborghini absolutely planted where he can do and park it on the curb. He just needs to make sure he doesn't let that Porsche by. So the Porsche, we know on true speed and lap time, should get by Drew, but Drew obviously can make it very difficult to overtake. You can see already that gap's come right down, that McLaren's right in the way. That's not helped Drew at all, but Drew's got some work to do now. We've got 3 minutes. It's just started to rain as well, I'm told. Let's jump aboard the helicopter. You can see on board with yes, there you can see he's on at the back of that Lamborghini. It has started to rain on track. This track is going to get very, very greasy very, very quickly, as it's not fully dried out itself. It's still fast, but it's not optimum. So car number 13 there, the Lamborghini, he's going to be on dry tyres. He's got the Ginetta in front of him that should be moving up both them blue flags, which it's not. Although, to be fair, it's not a convenient place to pass. Drew has got to keep that Porsche behind him now if he wants to win this race. What's he going to do as they now go up towards turn 7 and 8? You can see Drew Matthews there. He's got the Porsche right behind him. Porsche pulling out to the right there, right hand side there. The Ginetta's going to be right in the wrong place there for the Porsche to get by, and that's helped Drew a million. As the Ginetta's now going to hold up the Porsche, which will give Drew a little bit of breathing space. It is raining on the track, very light drizzle, very light indeed, but yes, they're making it through. Drew needs a really clean exit here, otherwise that Porsche is going to absolutely gobble him up down the main straight. We'll stay on board with his rear wing. You can see the Porsche there didn't get the great exit because the blue flag was just in the wrong place, although you can see from straight line speed the Porsche is certainly not disappearing anytime soon. 2 minutes 20 left to go. I reckon there must be 2 laps left of this race. Let's see when he crosses the line. We'll soon see exactly what this is going to look like. Oh yeah, it's just getting a little bit close there. We're going to have a last lap battle is what I think we're going to have here at tonight's HFG Transatlantic Triple Crown race. 1 minute 59 to go. They're lapping at 1:42. So Drew, unfortunately, is going to have to defend for 2 more laps, I think. Which he's going to be absolutely gutted about. That Porsche is all over the back of him. He really could have done with just being 1 more lap left to go, but I think he's going to have to defend for 2. The rain is just drizzling at the moment. You can barely see it. Don't think it'll come through on the stream at all. It certainly is off track. The Porsche there looking so racy indeed. Drew is going to have to plant that Lamborghini exactly where Yers doesn't want it to try and stay in front. You can see them coming around there down towards turn 7 now. Drew's going to have to defend like mad going into turn 8 as the Porsche now is on the back of him. Porsche is going to pull out and try and make a move down the inside of 8, just a bit too far back on this particular occasion. 1 minute left of this race. I still think there's going to be another lap. Yers is going to try and make this move down in turn 10. Drew is going to need the best exit of turn 10 he's had all afternoon to make this stick. Otherwise that Porsche is going to be all over the back of him. He's got, can't knock that exit. He got a very good exit there. It's exactly what he needed on that occasion. The Porsche, you can just see the straight line speed of Yers' Porsche though, catching on Drew. Yers is all over the back of him. He's got 30 seconds left of this race, and I think Drew's going to cross the line a bit deep there for Drew, and the Porsche gets a bit squirrely as well. Drew's going to keep the position. Oof. 20 seconds left of this race. Now, yes, Drew could tactically lift here and make the checkered flag come down 1 lap early, but I don't think he's going to want to do that with Yers all over the back of him. He's defended this entire lap. 8 seconds. He's going to cross the line here with 1 more lap to go. Oh, 1 more lap. Yes, he's going to put that on the inside, which is exactly where he doesn't want the car to be. As he sends it up the inside, take out a lot of curve there, and Drew's going to keep the inside line there. Oh, and Yers has made the move around the outside of 3 and 4. Drew's going to try and come back at him though. As Yers goes wide, he's going to have to lift a bit there to make up that time. And Drew really did not need that second lap to come in after that timer dropped down to 1 second. If it had just lifted by 3 seconds, the checkered flag would have dropped all over the back of that Porsche. I mean, we can't take it away from yes, that was a fantastic overtake that we saw in towards turn 1, up the inside of that curb. But the raw pace of that Porsche is incredible, which we've seen so far this series. You can already see the gap that he's creating on Drew. And I would have said that unless Jers makes a mistake, this race is very much done and dusted and sealed for the car number 37. There is still half a lap left to go, and we're right on board with the Lamborghini himself, Drew Matthews, who has done a fantastic job this race from start to finish. Just his strategy was fantastic. He has made mistakes, just has, and he has come back from them, so you cannot deny him of this victory. Both drivers deserve it. And I think, as I said earlier, we're going to see the car number 37 take victory for the third time this series in round 3. Of course, we are racing again next week at Kyalami. And yes, he's going to come across the line there, and that is done deal. I did say earlier in this race, once the Porsche clears the Lamborghini, he will be comfortably ahead. So that was a fantastic last lap that we just saw there. Last lap battle there by Jers and Drew Matthews. Drew probably being the deserving driver of that win, but Jers' strategy, consistency and raw pace brought him the victory in the end. That was fantastic by both those drivers. I wouldn't have said one of those deserves to win more than the other. And like I say, both drivers equally made it themselves. And I can just say as well, if you look at the rain now, just as the checkered flag drops, we've got a fair bit of rain coming down now as well. So I mean, Jers probably should practice his donuts a little bit more for these victory. I mean, he's won enough, he should be good at these by now. There we go, he's finally got them going, Drew will be very pleased with that outcome as well. I mean, the Porsche Cup car there from Jers should have finished where it finished, so Drew can't be too disappointed. But when he was so close to the end there, and if it had just lifted those 4 seconds, he would have won himself a lap earlier. So he shouldn't have held on for another lap because of the class differences, as I said earlier. So the result as expected, but still nevertheless very fun to watch. Let's just see another. Ian Hall manages to pull out a P11. He's still racing, but it's going to be a P11 finish. And he will be one of the last ones to cross the line. Chris Davis there had a P5 finish as well. He had a very mixed race. He did up and down the leaderboard. Steve Ender is in P3 with his podium. Yes, well done to Drew indeed. He did a great race there, and he held on as long as he could. One more lap and that would have been him sorted. I'll put the replay on. We are back in Kyalami next week for those of you in the stream if you want to come and watch. And I will put the replays on for you now. We'll move that live sign so anyone joining the stream doesn't get confused. And I will leave you with this. So thank you very much for joining us this evening, and we will see you next week for Kyalami.